Welcome everybody to this edition of Attention Talk Video. I'm your host, Attention Coach Jeff Copper. I'm here with Rob Tedisco, who is the Executive Director of the EDGE Foundation. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
We're doing some videos for tips for students that are transitioning to from high school to college, and we're trying to bring aware of little things that you don't necessarily think of. And one of those key things for those with ADHD going off to school is medication management. And we've touched on this in other videos and stuff, but as a reminder, medication diversion is a big issue, and if your student is diverting some of those, it can be a felony offense. But today we really want to kind of focus on just the fact that they're on their own and they've got to manage it on their own. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. One of the things that's important, I think, for parents to realize is that coaching as an intervention or as a support mechanism for their students is not just about academics. You have to remember that your son or daughter is going off into the world as an adult. It comes down to them getting enough sleep. It comes down to their nutrition, things that take for granted when they're in high school because you're there providing that support. But most of these kids go away from home and go to college, and all of these life skills are really coming into play, and they can negatively affect them. So a coaching model is really a life model. It talks about their academics, their social skills, it talks about their life needs, nutritionally, sleep-wise, medication management, everything involved. Yep. So it's not just about getting an A in the class or versus an F in the class.
And just to illuminate some of these, one is the notion that you got to remember to take your meds.
Correct.
The other one is you've got to remember to go get your meds when the prescription runs out, because it's not like you call these into the pharmacy and they've got 3 or 4 refills. Most situations you have to go get a prescription and actually go, and you actually have to have the foresight to know that in advance.
That's correct, especially when you have regulated prescriptions like stimulant medication is. And unfortunately what happens is most of the time when they're at home during the K to 12 years, mom or dad are doling out the medication and it's done on a schedule. That provides structure for them. But when they're in college, they're on their own. And so it's more difficult for them to realize, to remember, and to develop those routines. And that's where coaching can really come in handy to help them develop structure and support and accountability around themselves.
And it's kind of funny because you talked about remembering to take their meds. Now, one of the things that kind of cracks me up is many ADDers will say, well, if stimulants are so addictive, then why is it I forget to take them? Which is a real issue, right?
Yes, it is.
And I'll share this tip. I actually coached somebody one time that they would get up in the morning and sometimes they would have taken it and couldn't remember, and other times they didn't and they couldn't remember. And they had this clever little trick that if the bottle was upright, then it was an even day, and it was upside down, it was an odd day. And if they got later in the day and they were like, did I take it or not? They would just go look at the position of the bottle as a means to remind them, and hopefully they didn't miss for 2 days in a year. But as subtle as that is, it's a very real issue.
It is a real issue, and I think the importance of that story is more to let people know that you have to understand yourself well enough to be able to develop mechanisms that are going to work for you. And so it really takes a lot of introspection to see, what's going to remind me? Is it going to be a visual cue? Is it going to be an alarm clock that's an auditory cue? And that kind of look is really what's important for students to achieve.
Another thing I want to kind of bring up, I know as a coach, is so many times we do things out of habit. And I interviewed Dr. Barkley one time, and he had this great analogy. Think of the brain as a 2-level system. You have the automatic brain, and then you have the executive functioning brain. And the executive functioning brain is effortful. You have to exert effort to override the automatic brain. And I talk about this because so often when I've coached some teens is that the student might have some organizational skills and be organizing themselves when they leave. But what's been fascinating to me as I've coached is that when you're in high school, your day is organized. It's kind of like you get done with school and you have extracurricular activities, which would be athletics. So you're almost kind of on autopilot, and studying actually kind of fits into a certain part of the day, typically in the evening. But when you go off to college, sometimes if you have evening classes or you have breaks during the day, you're changing your habits and your routine, and your automatic brain is having to override this stuff. And while they might have been able to use the calendar or some structure at home, to a certain extent, it's habit. I want to speak to that a little bit. I mean, it's a little disruptive. So I guess what I'm saying is they can have some organizational type stuff, but some of the old habits are hard to translate into that new environment just because of the changes of the nature of the schedule.
The only thing that I would say a little differently is that it's not so much a change in routine, it's the complete absence of a routine. And
Yes.
what the students really have to learn is that they have to build one now. Like you said, they're so accustomed to studying at a certain time of day as classes end, but when you're in college, you may have a class at 8 o'clock in the morning and your next class is at 4 in the afternoon. What happens to that time
Yep.
in the middle? Unless you develop a routine on those days and know where you're going, and it really is about building structure around
Yep.
yourself. So that's really important.
And you know, I'm glad you said that, because it kind of sparked me. I'm coaching somebody right now who transitions is a big issue for those with ADHD, and when you're changing semesters from fall to spring, etc., your classes can change. And I'm actually coaching somebody right now who their classes used to be in the morning now, and they had a routine, they had that all set. Now it's going into the afternoon, so their routine is actually changing 3 times a year, each semester, and then for the summer. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that one of the things you will develop as a college student is the recognition of how you design your own schedule to the extent that you can, and how you can build a routine around it, and that becomes a skill. I mean, we often think, Jeff, about training in the sense of our bodies, but this is really about training your mindset into how to incorporate structure in your day as your day changes from semester to semester. And that's really important for students to realize.
Absolutely. Rob, always great tips. I hope you parents out there find this helpful, and even some of the students out there, because these are the things that you don't think about before you go, but you're going to end up addressing them. So if you would like to learn more about Rob and the Edge Foundation, go to edgefoundation.org. With that, Rob, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you very much, Jeff.